Pretty Girl Club. Welcome back to the Diabolicals United series. And today I want to talk about the You're Not an Exotical talking point. So, as far as how this channel began, you guys know that I used to be very much into pro-black spaces. And this is back when I was like kind of going through my HOTEP phase. I used to be very much of a follower of like the Black women empowerment spaces on YouTube. This is back when I had another Google account where I showed myself and everything, like I showed my face and all that. And I noticed that whenever I would like come onto a live stream or go into the comment sections, and whenever I would like donate money and stuff like that, it was never respected. I never had the voice that I wanted to have in Black empowerment spaces. And a lot of the followers of channels like Chrissy, Cynthia G, and other Black empowerment content creators, they would actually troll me and they would make fun of me and they would call me this crazy nickname, Exotical. And so I finally decided that, you know what? I'm going to do what they say. I'm going to listen to them. They said they wanted their own exclusive spaces for unambiguous dark-skinned Black women. They also said that like a person like me would not understand because I don't suffer from colorism, texturism, featureism, misogynoir, and all of these different things. And so I decided to create a space for the women who do not fit into those exclusive spaces. And this channel decenters whiteness. This channel also decenters men. So a lot of the Black empowerment YouTube spaces, they're very white male centered. So their whole entire identity is based on what would a white male think of me. Like whenever they say, oh, racist police officers would still kill you. Okay, that's a white male. Whenever they say, oh, KKK members would still want to unalive you. Okay, that's a white male. Whenever they say things like, oh, well, when I divest, I have an easier time because they prefer me. That's a white male. So the Black women empowerment space, it went from being Black male centered to white male centered. And so what's innovative about the Exoticals United community is that this niche on YouTube, it is very decentered from whiteness. We don't view race and skin color on a hierarchy based on proximity to whiteness. And we also don't idolize white males or like how white men see us. But now that we have our own space on YouTube, Blackistan is now fighting over what an exotical is, which is proof that they always pedestalized us. So isn't it funny how this term exotical started off as this incredibly stupid term? That's why I named my channel Exotical, because I literally started off as a troll channel. And so I chose the most silly, outlandish name that I was called, which was Exotical. And I was like, we are the Exoticals United. So all the other girls who can relate to me, we're all going to just make our own YouTube space. But now, Blackistan, they're taking us so seriously. And this is proof that you have the social power. Because whenever you have social power, when you say you're going to do something, people take it seriously. They really do. Because you were on the pedestal the whole time. So even though people try to pretend like you're so irrelevant and like you're not worth anything, like your voice doesn't matter, as soon as you start speaking out, then suddenly they take it very seriously. So Blackistan, they're taking the exotical space so seriously that a lot of them are like now fighting to try to take back and police the term exotical. Remember, if you police it, you're pedestalizing it. And so Blackistan likes to police your identity because they pedestalize certain identities. That's why they'll try to tell you, well, you're not really that mixed. You're not really that light skinned. Whenever someone uses the word that, you're not that mixed. You're not that light skinned. You're not that pretty. They're actually subconsciously admitting to you that they have hierarchy thinking. What they're saying is, okay, you are mixed, you are light skinned, you are pretty, but you're not as high up on the pretty, mixed, or light skinned hierarchy as someone else. So Blackistan suffers from a lot of hierarchy thinking. And I've also noticed that they use whiteness as their standard for exotic because, you know, they're monocultural. So they've only grown up around Blackness and Black people. A lot of people who are mixed race, like if you're, let's say you're Black and white, you're Blasian, you're Afro-Latina, a lot of us have not been raised to think of Blackness as non-exotic. A lot of us have actually been raised to think Blackness is exotic. Hence why a lot of mixed women date Black men because they view the Black men as being exotic if they were raised in a multicultural environment. So like for me personally, I was raised in a multicultural environment. I was told that my Blackness is actually what makes me exotic and beautiful. So I've always associated exoticism with Blackness, But for the monoracial, monocultural Black community, it's the exact opposite. They view anything non-Black as exotic. So this is why they put non-Blackness on a pedestal. They'll put white men on a pedestal. They'll put non-Black Latinas on a pedestal. Remember how Paris Milan was like, oh, Jordan Childs can't compete with non-Black Latinas, because Paris was saying that because in her mind, she puts anything non-Black as higher up on a hierarchy than anything that is mixed with Black. And so in Blackistan, they do that a lot. And so with the exotical space, we are actually a Blackness-centered space. We've actually de-centered whiteness on this channel, which I've never seen any other YouTuber do in the Black YouTube spaces. And that's a part of what makes our community so special. That's a part of why it's growing so fast. That's why we have over 60 channels within this niche, because we decided to decenter men and decenter whiteness, and nobody has ever seen that before on YouTube. A lot of the Black women's spaces on YouTube, they're male-centered or they're whiteness-centered. So everything is focused on, well, what would a man think of me? What would a white man think of me? What would a racist white man think of me? We do not see ourselves through the eyes of racist white people. We also don't see ourselves through the eyes of self-hating anti-Black Black people. Blackistan views whiteness as the standard for exoticism, so that's why they will say things like, well, you guys are not exoticals, because what they're really saying is you don't look mixed. Anytime somebody says you don't look mixed, what they really mean is you don't look white, or you don't look like the non-Black side of your mix. That's usually what they mean. They view non-Blackness as the standard for mixed race. And isn't it hilarious how when you go into Black spaces, they will talk so much about how they're so pro-Black and Blackness is the blueprint, but suddenly when it comes to the mixed race community in particular, whiteness becomes the blueprint? Or when it comes to light-skinned people, suddenly whiteness is the blueprint. So if you're non-white passing, let's say you have a light brown skin tone or a beigey skin tone or a tan skin tone, some sort of sandy skin tone, suddenly it's, you're not that light-skinned. Well, why are they saying that? Well, it's because you're not that white, is what they're really trying to say. They're revealing the fact that they place whiteness on a pedestal. Their internalized identity is very centered around whiteness and what a white man would think of them, because they admit it all the time. They say, well, a racist white man would still kill you, or a KKK member wouldn't accept you. Okay, so they spend their time thinking about the intergenerational traumas from their Black background. And so they wake up in the morning and think about the KKK. They drive down the street and think about racist police officers, white police officers following them. You know, they have all of this trauma and paranoia around white people. And so they view their proximity to Blackness as a handicap. So if you're a mixed person, or let's say you benefit from an ism, let's say you're a monoracial Black woman who benefits from an ism, which would make you an exotical, in their mind, they feel like your proximity to Blackness should be handicapping you socially. And so I notice they get very mad when they see dark-skinned women in this space. They get very mad when they see light-skinned monoracial women in this space, because they feel like, how dare you not have proximity to whiteness and still be privileged? How dare you be a Black woman and have social privilege in society? How dare you be dark-skinned and be that confident? You're not even light-skinned enough to be that confident. You're not exotic looking enough. AKA, you're not white looking enough. Exchange the word exotical with the word white or non-Black. That's essentially what they're doing in Blackistan. That's essentially their definition of exoticism. You have to be non-Black passing in their eyes. You can't look like you have any Blackness in your DNA at all, because to them, Blackness is basic. And so this is how I know they have an inferiority complex. They view Blackness as inferior, and so they feel like by us creating YouTube channels and empowering ourselves, they conflate self-empowerment with superiority complexes. And so they feel like, how dare you be a monoracial Black woman, Chloe and Halle Bailey, and be that confident, and actually feel confident in declaring what your skin tone identity is. But I've also noticed another double standard. Like, if somebody is 65 or 75% white, people have no problem calling them biracial or mixed. So for example, Meghan Markle, Mariah Carey, or Halsey, people have no problem calling those women biracial or mixed. But suddenly, if you're 65 to 75% Black, people have a problem, because they don't want to admit that someone can be mixed and Black passing, like Ryan Destiny or Justine Skye. They have this mindset of, you're too dark to be mixed. You're too dark to be exotic. Okay, so they're admitting that they feel like dark skin doesn't make you exotic. Anytime somebody says you're not an exotical, ask them, well, what is an exotical? Show me a picture. Like what facial features make that person not an exotical? Because this channel and this community is actually very clear about what we consider to be not an exotical. It's literally an unambiguous, monoracial, dark-skinned black woman with broad features and 4C hair. I got that definition directly from the black empowerment space. And so anytime somebody says something like you're not exotic, or you don't look mixed, or you don't look exotic enough, all you have to do is ask them, okay, what about this person makes them not look exotic? And then watch them point out their black features. And so they're going to end up exposing themselves, because they will start pointing out black features. They'll point out the person's dark skin tone, or they will point out the person's wide nose, or they'll point out their large lips, or their 4C hair, or whatever it is. It's always going to be a black feature that they feel makes you not exotic. So this proves that they actually center exoticism around whiteness. So they call themselves pro-black, but they actually have a lot of internalized inferiority complexes, and they definitely pedestalize whiteness, and they suffer from hierarchy thinking, because they'll say stuff like, well, you're not even biracial. So in their mind, they're saying that because they view people who have at least 50% non-black blood as being higher up on a scale, or being more valid than somebody who is, let's say you're 75% African and you have a dark skin tone. And so what they're really saying is that you don't deserve a voice because you're too black. You don't deserve a voice because you're too dark. You don't deserve a voice because you're not at least 50% Asian or 50% white. So they feel like people who have more whiteness in their ancestry are more valid. What they're doing is they want to make you feel isolated. But this channel was specifically created for non-white passing women in particular, because like I said, this channel decenters whiteness. That's why sometimes people who are 50% white and 50% black get mad at the exotical space, because those types of people, they're white centered in their identity. So they don't like the fact that my channel doesn't center whiteness. Like in my imagery, if you haven't noticed, with a lot of the images I use of the women on this channel, a lot of the women that I use are actually not white passing. And that's because I don't center whiteness on this channel. A lot of people have already been exposed to whiteness-centered mixed people, or kind of like whiteness-centered identities on YouTube. So what makes this space special is the fact that we actually do love our blackness and view our blackness as a part of what makes us exotic. In fact, a lot of us have been raised by our own family members that our blackness is what makes us stand out. If you're a mixed person who has always been empowered in your blackness, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But people get very triggered over black passing mixed people, because as a black passing mixed person, you can fly under the radar and be the black standard of beauty. But then once you become an icon and people find out you're mixed, then they'll fight to keep you in unambiguous blackness. But my question is, if someone can be mixed and white passing, why can't they be mixed and black passing? So do you see the double standard when it comes to Blackistan? And by the way, nobody in Black YouTube has been able to accurately answer all of my 23 questions. By the way, any question that I ask to Black YouTube is a question that has already been answered here in the exotical space. At the end of the day, race and skin color and stuff like that, it's all a social construct. This is why I created a sociology-based channel. So nobody who has any expertise in sociology in the Black YouTube spaces has been able to address any of our talking points. And a part of why we're growing so fast is because our content is actually based on sociology, psychology, and anecdotal evidence. We understand that skin tone is subjective. We understand that your racial identity or how you're perceived is going to be subjective based on where you're at. But in Blackistan, they have a monocultural, monoracial identity, so they want to put you in a box. They're like, no, you can only identify as one thing. They want you to pick a side, and they'll try to force you to pick a side. So if you're dark skinned, obviously they're going to force you to pick blackness, unambiguous blackness only. But my thing is, unambiguous mono dark skinned black women, they asked for their own exclusive spaces. And now they have them. So isn't it hilarious how wherever the exoticals go, everybody else follows? They asked for their own exclusive spaces to talk about colorism, texturism, featureism, and, Black issues, Black Hebrew Israelite talking points, whatever. They said they didn't want mutts or like all of these mixed people with like this diluted blood. They didn't want those types of people in their spaces. They've talked about all that stuff, but now that we have peacefully created our own spaces where we are minding our own business and talking about social strategy, people are mad. Well, why are they mad? They're mad because we're actually doing a good job. if you look at the exotical content creators, they are some excellent content creators. Go look at Pretty in Between. Go look at the Exotic Brown Skin. Go look at all of the other creators in this space. They've got some amazing talking points, and we speak from a place of victory. Like, we speak from a place of power. Whereas in Blackistan, they speak from a place of being defeated. You know, if you look at Chrissy's channel, she's constantly begging Hollywood to give her corrective promotion. So instead of them taking responsibility for their own representation, they rather focus on how the exoticals are representing ourselves. And honestly, I think it's better that we have our own YouTube channels, because who better to represent you than yourself? So a lot of people, some people in Blackistan have gotten mad at my YouTube channel because they're like, well, you're not talking about unambiguous black women. And it's like, well, if I myself am not an accurate representation of unambiguous mono dark skinned black women with 4C hair, why would I represent them on my channel? So do you see what I mean about how they're constantly begging others to be their representation? So they put my YouTube channel on such a high pedestal to the point where they're so triggered or so angry. They put all the exotical channels on a very high pedestal because we actually have good YouTube channels. We actually have valid talking points. That's why they put us on a pedestal. And they know that this channel is on track to reach 100,000. This channel is on track to reach 1 million subscribers at some point. So a lot of us in the exotical space, we are going to be the next up and coming controversial content creators. The same thing that we're going through in this exotical space is the same thing that Shira7 went through, Kevin Samuels, Cynthia G, any controversial content creator who ended up succeeding years down the line. They all went through a time period when they were smaller to where a lot of people tried to like badger them, and that's because they were all innovative in one way or another. So I may not agree with Cynthia G and Kevin Samuels in particular, but I can still give credit where credit is due. They still succeeded at getting their messages out there. So what's really threatening, it's not the fact that we have YouTube channels, it's our message that is threatening. It's the fact that we actually confirm some of the insecurities that a lot of other women already had. But guess what? Other people's insecurities are not our responsibility. It is not our responsibility to build other women's self-esteem, especially women who wouldn't cape for us. Why would we cape for women who wouldn't cape for us? That doesn't make sense. We have the right to practice self-preservation just like any other group. I see Japanese women talking about how Japanese women are the most beautiful in the world and they love being Japanese, and they talk about all the beautiful things about Japanese culture. I see blonde white women talking about being blonde and blondes have more fun and I'm a pretty blonde and I'm golden blonde or whatever. So why is it that suddenly when the exoticals create our own terminologies, we create our own spaces, we create our own urban dictionary pages, we have literally done what they told us to do. We created our own spaces separate from theirs. We didn't try to tell them, oh, you need to put this type of woman in your imagery. No, we didn't try to control the narrative of unambiguous spaces. We simply did what they told us to do, which was to get out. See how they're following us over into our spaces? See how they can't mind their own business? They have to mind our business? It's because they view us as having the social power. A lot of them don't feel like they have any social power or influence, and so they want to try to steer and direct our content so that we can be their puppets. We are no longer going to be the puppets of unambiguous mono dark skinned black women with broad features and 4C hair. We're no longer going to be your puppets. We are no longer going to lie about our ancestry. We're no longer going to downplay our ancestries, our skin tones, our hair textures. No, we finally have a safe space where we get to talk about our experiences without being accused of being delusional or lying and stuff like that. So if that makes other people uncomfortable, they can keep scrolling. They can find other YouTube channels to watch, because at this point, there are tens of thousands of us. We can't all be lying. We can't all be lying about our experiences. We can't all be lying about our pretty privilege and stuff like that. So I think that ever since the exotical space became a thing on YouTube, unambiguous women realized that they were playing the game wrong. They realized that they've been doing it wrong. They realized that they've been doing their YouTube branding wrong this whole time because they've seen us brand ourselves in a way that's positive. And they've seen a whole bunch of YouTubers collaborating. I've never in the history of YouTube seen 50 or 60 content creators all collaborating at the same time. Like I will see like Exotica Worship and Exotical Epiphany interacting. I've seen like Dulce K and Shades of Resilience interacting and streaming together. Like I have never seen this big of like a network of beautiful women of Black descent all like collaborating and actually empowering each other. And that's very threatening. It's almost like a new version of an online civil rights movement or something like that. We are shifting the culture. We really are. And so that's really what's threatening. It's the fact that we are shifting the culture because let's be honest, whether you like Cynthia G, Kevin Samuels, or Shira 7, whether you like them or not, all three of those creators, they technically did shift the culture as a whole outside of YouTube. They did. So, like I said, I'm not necessarily a fan of Kevin Samuels or Cynthia G's talking points about biracials in particular. Obviously, I am a fan of Sheer 7. But whether you like them or not, all three of those creators, they shifted the culture both on and off YouTube. So that's really what it is. It's the fact that there is a cultural shift coming, not just in the YouTube space, but in general. So this is why I tell all the pretty girls, make sure you create your own YouTube channel because who better to represent you than yourself? Like a lot of people, they try to say I'm somehow the leader of this space. There really is no such thing as like one person that's leading it. All of the exotical content creators really are the leaders. Whoever creates a channel and puts their voice out there and spends their time, effort, and energy making a channel or commenting on a channel or sharing a blog post or whatever, those are all the leaders of the exotical space. It's not just myself. And this is exactly what I mean about how they have hierarchy thinking. Do you see how they're even trying to put me on a hierarchy versus the other exotical content creators? They're trying to put me on a hierarchy saying that because I have more numbers, that somehow I'm higher up. And real life doesn't actually exist in hierarchies. All of the content creators in this space are leaders. All of the women who comment on an exotical channel are leaders because if you're sharing your voice, people are hearing you. So you're still getting your message out there. But whenever someone says you're not an exotical, it's like, wait a minute, I thought that exotical was not even a real word and it was just a silly term. So why is it that you guys didn't care about who used that word exotical before? But now that we've built a niche on YouTube, suddenly you want to take the term back and try to define it? How are you going to tell the creators of the exotical niche on YouTube what an exotical is? Nope. You don't get to control shit over here. You don't get to run shit over here. Blackistan has no power and influence over the exotical space. We are a separate space, just like you guys wanted. Unambiguous mono dark skinned black women wanted their own spaces where they could empower their fellow counterparts and stuff. And they even separated from black men. And they have a whole gender war, black men and black women, a lot of them don't even like each other. So they created their own separate spaces. So guess what? Now we have our own separate space as well. We have our own secret society of pretty girls. So you won't be able to tell the creators of the exotical niche what an exotical is. We get to take our own little votes over here. Oh, by the way, be sure to vote in my texturism poll. And that's a poll where I asked you guys, what hair textures do you believe start to benefit from texturism? So right now it seems to be between 3C and 4A, but I feel like you guys are probably talking about the same texture. So I'm going to do another poll after this where I'm going to show pictures and I'm going to ask you guys like, okay, what do you mean by 3C or 4A? Because I feel like you guys are probably talking about the same hair type, but you're just using different terminologies. But as far as what we consider light skin or benefiting from an ism, we already have determined that over here. So it's like when it comes to Black YouTube, they made a social climbing mistake by not defining terms. They didn't define terms. They didn't actually build a community. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, the exoticals, they're trying to redefine terminologies and definitions. Yeah, and who gonna check us? That's what you do when you build a culture. Other like ethnic groups or racial groups or geographical cities and stuff like that, they have their own slang terms, right? They have their own terminologies, right? They have their own language that they use in their country or in their family or in their household. Other people develop language to describe their experiences. So we are doing the same thing over here. So don't be mad because you guys weren't smart enough to build your own language to describe your experiences. I mean, you guys really did. You guys created the term unambiguous black woman. So you guys created that term. You guys are creating your own definitions as well. So why is it okay when you guys create terms such as unambiguous black women, and then it's not okay when we create terms such as ambiguous black woman, which is a monoracial black woman who has ambiguity in her phenotype? So why is it not okay for us to create our own terms? So do you see what I mean when I say that their spaces are obviously in the decline? So that's why they're kind of riding our coattails. They want to try to use us as their puppets. No, we are no longer going to make our YouTube channels into puppets and parrot accounts so that we could copy and paste everything from Black YouTube. No, we're not doing that over here. So yes, we are going to continue to create our own positive nicknames. We have the right to use our freedom of speech to social climb as much as we want. And clearly it's working, because otherwise people wouldn't be so bothered. But it's really interesting though, because people have resorted to death threats of myself and other creators in this space. People have been telling other exotical creators to go unalive themselves. So my first question is, Chrissy, I thought you cared about black femicide. So if I and the rest of us are just unambiguous dark-skinned black women and we are getting death threats, wouldn't that be like black femicide? You know, since we're not exoticals and we're all unambiguous dark-skinned black women. So why is no one coming to the defense of the exoticals then, with us receiving death threats? So do you see what I mean? So on the one hand, they'll say, well, you're just an unambiguous dark-skinned black woman. But then as soon as something bad happens to you, they don't come to your defense, like how they come to the defense of other dark-skinned black women. Okay, so that's a sign that you were never a part of their community. And also, being monoracial won't save you. Because even if you're a monoracial light-skinned woman, the vitriol and the colorism jealousy against you, it stops their empathy in a lot of cases. So this is a space where we are finally safe. We're finally emotionally safe over here. But one of the tactics of Blackistan YouTube is they will try to use anti-blackness against you to make you feel inferior. So they feel inferior about their black features, and so they want you to feel inferior about your black features. So that's why they'll say, well, you're not an exotical, look at your nose. You're not an exotical, look at your lips. You're not an exotical, look at your dark skin tone. You're not an exotical, look at your nappy hair. Everything that makes you not an exotical in their eyes is a black feature. So they view black features as inferior. They view black features as not being exotic. So that's why they're saying you're not an exotical. What they really mean is you're not white. Replace the word exotical with white, Asian, or Hispanic. That's what they're trying to say. They're trying to say you're not non-black. Because in their mind, an exotical is only something that is non-black. And obviously, this is a blackness-centered channel. So we believe that our blackness mixed with the other stuff, whether it's culturally, ethnically, or phenotypically, the combination of all those things are what makes us an exotical. We don't want to center whiteness, and we don't want to center males. We don't have white males at the center of our identities. So yes, we embrace our blackness and our black features, but we also embrace our non-blackness or non-black features. And we like having both of them together. The word exotical in and of itself is really just a slang term, number one. And then people are like, oh, well, the exoticals, you guys have changed. You guys are cocky now. These exotical channels are making you think you're the shit. These exotical channels got your head pumped up. Like, I've seen some people commenting. It's actually pretty funny. And it's like, okay, you're supposed to change. You're supposed to grow. You're supposed to evolve. You are supposed to be feeling yourself. So what have you been doing your whole life? Have you just been walking around insecure your whole life? Because last time I checked, you're supposed to be constantly leveling up. So of course we've changed. Of course we have grown. Of course we have embraced all of ourselves. And now we're like building these YouTube channels and coming up with slang terms and stuff. That's called growth. And isn't it funny? Because it's like, I thought that blackness was beautiful, and I thought blackness was the blueprint and your melanin is popping. So why is blackness only beautiful on a dark-skinned woman, but suddenly those same black features are not beautiful on a mixed woman? Do you see the double standard? Black features are only beautiful on a dark-skinned, unambiguous woman, but on a light-skinned woman, those same black features are not beautiful, and it means you're not exotic. So what does that tell me about how you view unambiguous blackness then? Like, if you're saying Jordan Childs can't compete with non-black Latinas, then what does it tell me about you competing with half-black Latinas? Paris Milan. Do you see the double standard? People are also upset about the unity within this space. This space is based on the mixed and monoracial women who are not unambiguous dark skinned black women. We are women who have benefited from at least one ism rather than like suffering from all the isms. And so if you're mixed, obviously you would have benefited from mixed privilege. And another reason Blackistan is mad is because they don't like that black passing mixed people still have mixed privilege. That's another thing I've noticed they get really mad at. They're like, how dare you talk about Ryan Destiny and Justine Skye and Bernice Burgos and other quote unquote black passing mixed women? And I know that when it comes to passing, that's subjective, but it's like, yeah, if white passing mixed women can still benefit from mixed privilege, why can't black passing mixed women still benefit from mixed privilege? Do you see what I mean? They have no knowledge of sociology. They have no knowledge of how society actually works. So a lot of people who are mad at the exotical space, they are just usually monocultural black women and men who have never gone outside of black spaces. A lot of them are not very well traveled. Maybe they've only lived in one country or one state, or they've only lived in one place. They only interact in black spaces. They've only been exposed to black media and stuff like that. So they don't understand mixed race privilege. Or maybe they are mixed, but they never had that mixed race privilege. So they're like, how dare you be darker than me and black passing and have more privilege than me? They don't like that dark-skinned mixed women still benefit from mixed privilege. They thought that mixed privilege only works if you're light-skinned, and obviously this channel has debunked that over and over. You can be dark-skinned and mixed and have mixed privilege. But the bottom line is that Blackistan has no power in our YouTube spaces. They have no control over our identities, and they have no influence on or off YouTube. They're very bad at building communities, and we are obviously very good at building a community. We are good at building social power. They're triggered that we have a diverse space, and they're mostly triggered that we have monoracial black women over here who still benefit from privileges in their everyday life. They're also triggered by the fact that we have dark-skinned women in this space. So they'll say that you're not an exotical because they're actually jealous of your multiculturalism. I've noticed that some monocultural mixed people, yes, that's a thing. You can be multiracial and monocultural, just like how you can be monoracial and multicultural. For example, Giselle Bryant and Robin. Both of those women are mixed race, but they're monocultural. They're from Blackistan. They only hang out in Blackistan. So a lot of mixed women who are monocultural are mad at this space because they're jealous of the multiculturalism that darker, quote unquote, blacker women have over them. So they're mad that the women like Justine Skye are more successful than them, but darker than them. You know, they're mad that like you're black passing and it's working for you, but them being white passing didn't work for them, that sort of thing. So they have that mindset of, if I don't get to be multicultural, neither do you. If I can't have a fluid identity, neither can you. And also my thing is, if people dislike the exotical space, why not just keep scrolling? Like, I stopped watching my detractors a long time ago because it's not as fun when their talking points are based on falsehoods. It's only fun if they have legit talking points. But if it's just them pulling up whatever talking point they can, just pulling up anything out of their butt, then it's not as fun. So it's like, if they don't like our space, they're going to have to get over it because we're here to stay. We're not going anywhere. We are going to get our exotical tax. We are going to make money. My job, actually, my YouTube business, it has officially surpassed my accounting income this past month. And so, yeah, we are on the up and up. This space is going to keep on growing. And we have so much diversity in this space. And that's really what people are threatened by. They're threatened by the unity of the space. And isn't it hilarious how some people have been saying like our spaces are disruptive to them? So us creating YouTube channels is disruptive? Out of the 1 billion people who log on to YouTube every 30 days, none of those other channels are disruptive, but suddenly, because we created YouTube channels, it's disruptive. But that's how I know that we actually have the social power. It's disrupting their algorithm because they're clicking on us. They're clicking on our videos, that's why. But what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.